everyone, and welcome to PLM Talks. I'm here with Christi Nogle. We're going to be talking about her novel, Beulah, which I made sure I knew how to pronounce correctly today. So Christi Nogle is the author of the novel Beulah, which came out in 2022, and her forthcoming collections, The Best of Our Past, The Worst of Our Future, Promise, and One Eye Opened in That Other Place, which is coming out with Flame Tree Press in 2023 and 2024. As well as those collections in the novel, her short stories have appeared in over 50 publications, including Pseudopod, Vastarian, and Dark Matter magazine. She lives in Boise, Idaho with her partner Jim and their gorgeous dogs, one of which is in the room. So welcome, Christi, and thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. I really look forward to talking with you.
Yeah, so let's get right into the nitty-gritty. So when did you first realize you wanted to become a writer?
You know, I always wanted to be a creative person, and I didn't really think about writing. I wanted to be a painter or maybe an interior decorator or something like that. But at the end of college, I started taking some writing classes, and I think that's when I really got into it. I loved writing my first short story. And then right after college, I got in an online community run through Zoetrope magazine. I think it was called the Writer's Studio, where we critiqued fiction. I got very into it, but then I ended up majoring in something else for grad school and kind of left off doing it for a while.
And did you start off writing horror, or did you kind of experiment with genres?
I'd say that what I started off writing was attempting to be something like maybe George Saunders stories, where they were weird and kind of creepy, but not exactly in the horror genre.
Okay, and what is your writing process like?
I tend to try to experiment with different processes, so I try not to get into too much of a rut. But a couple of things that have worked for me. One is to sit down and try to write maybe 10 story ideas as quickly as I can. Usually I won't get to 10. I'll find that one of them really calls to me and I'll start writing that story. And that tends to be a good way to get started. And then another thing that I do from time to time is plan out a story, maybe even start it, maybe even draft it, and then open up a new file and redo it so that it's really fluid. So I try little tricks like that to keep writing interesting.
And so do you tend to plot out your stories or your novels first, or do you kind of just like, as soon as you have the idea, you jump in?
What I will typically do, and it varies from piece to piece, but what I'll typically do is brainstorm and write notes and maybe even write scenes, and then back up and do an outline and then proceed from there. Again, not always, but often.
And then I'm always curious about this because I didn't realize how much it varied. I'm the type of writer who likes to, I like to have noise on in the background. Like, do you need it to be quiet? Do you need music? Do you want the TV on in the background? Like, what's your style?
If I'm really going, it doesn't matter. You know, I can just block out whatever's going on. But if I'm trying to create the ideal situation for writing, that would either be, silence, but maybe bird song or fan or something, or some white noise or some mellow music, or if I feel like it, sometimes some more intense music.
Okay, and then where do you get the ideas for your stories?
Oh, just a range of things. I'd say story submission calls, dreams, things that I read or watch, memories. Sometimes I'll be reading something and I'll misread and I'll think that something's happening in it that isn't, and I get disappointed, and then I think, well, I could write that story.
Oddly enough, I've had that happen too. Or when you watch a movie and you're like, oh, I think it's going in this direction, and then the movie ends in a different way, and you're like, well, my direction was better.
Yeah.
And so you said you started kind of seriously considering writing closer to the end of your college career. And it sounded like you kind of started exploring that by yourself before joining a writing group. Is there a piece of advice that you wish you would have received, or that you think aspiring or current writers should know about?
Yeah, I think that especially if you go through writing classes in college, sometimes you get the message that you should just revise and revise and revise the piece for the rest of your life. And that wasn't good advice for me, because I felt like I had to be 1,000% confident in something before I would ever send it out for publication. And so I didn't send things out for publication. So I think the piece of advice that I wish I'd gotten is that if you're reasonably confident in a piece, send it out and see what happens.
Yeah, I think with writers, you tend to have that imposter syndrome where you second guess everything. And so you have to balance that out with a lot of like false or hopefully genuine confidence in yourself. For me, sometimes it feels mainly like I'm just faking it till I make it. Like, yeah, I'm totally confident in my writing. So let's dive into the novel. Making sure, looking at my pronunciation, Beulah, which I totally thought was some sort of folklore creature until I Googled what the name meant, and it's an old-fashioned name, as you told me. So keeping it relatively spoiler-free, can you tell us what this book is about, essentially?
Yeah, so there's the plot level and then the thematic level. I'd say the plot is a young woman goes to the town of Beulah, Idaho. She's moving there with her sisters and mother to try to make a fresh start. They are going to restore an old lava stone schoolhouse, which is a cool thing we have in rural Idaho. They're going to turn it into a house, and they're trying to kind of get past everything that's happened in the past. So that's, the general premise. Of course, the young woman sees ghosts and has some interesting dreams that kind of tie her to the place. At the thematic level, I'd say the story is more about, this dissonance between what the world or other people tell you that you ought to do and what you feel in your mind, or in yourself that you ought to do. So kind of reconciling those two things.
Yeah, I will say, I actually visited Idaho for the first time very recently. And in your book, when you describe the schools as those domes, I was like, I know what those are. I know what those look like. I always is there a reason? This is like totally out of left field. Is there a reason why the schools are like dome shape? Is it?
Well, so the town of Beulah is loosely based on different towns that I was familiar with or lived in. And the town of Emmett, Idaho has a double dome high school. So it was a horrible, place to be, because there weren't any windows inside. So it felt like a prison to me.
That's so funny. That's the place I was thinking of, actually. So maybe it's just Emmett that's gone a bit weird. Then what inspired you to write this book?
Honestly, probably lots of things, but one primary thing I can think of is just really falling back in love with the horror genre around 2015 or 2016. I'd always loved horror, but all I had known about was whatever was in Walden books when I was a kid. And so I had a kind of superficial view of what there was. And then I started getting more and more into indie horror and weird fiction around 2015, 2016. And I realized I really wanted to write a horror novel. So I would say more than anything about the theme itself or the story was just this great desire to join in the conversation and write my own horror novel.
And so we mentioned process before, so let's kind of drill down. What was the process for writing this novel? Like, did you have to do any research? If you plotted it out, how did you do so? Do you set up mood boards? I know people do that. I don't know what the process is like for that.
Yeah. I didn't set up mood boards. I did find some photos of people to represent the main sisters, Georgie, Stevie, and Tommy, to try to, I guess, firm up my idea of who they were early on. I wrote this novel in Nano, so I wrote the first draft, and it was very, very different from the final piece. It had a frame narrative of the main character in the future, and then the part that became the final novel was flashback material. I found the flashbacks more interesting than the present day action, and so I completely rewrote it.
And that's interesting. So did you find Nano was helpful in kind of a launching off point?
I did. That was the first time I had done it, and I finished with, I don't know, 70,000 words or something, and I was very proud of myself. And then I have tried to do it since, and I always have fallen short, but I've gotten a lot of words down for sure.
I think I tried it once, like years ago, and I fell way short, and I've never tried it again. But I've heard like mixed things. Some people really love like when it comes around each year to jump into it and dedicate themselves to it. Other people say that they find it impossible, I guess, because of work commitments, you know, to write enough words each day to meet the goal. But it definitely sounds like it's helpful if you just need to get your idea out there and have the deadline to get it out there and have the accountability. I still don't know if I'll ever do it, but you know.
I keep doing it even though I keep failing at it, because failing might be 30,000 words instead of 60 or 40,000. So I'm just gonna address this puppy real quick.
Okay. Oh, the little puppy.
She was making a lot of noise. I don't know if you heard it, but I did.
I couldn't, but that's so cute. What part of the book did you have the hardest time writing?
You know, I didn't feel that I really had a hard time writing anything, but I would say the thing that I went over the most was probably the opening. There's a prologue, and then there's a preface, and then there's the first chapter. And I don't know, I felt that I had revised those a lot and really tried to make them as clear and vivid as I could. So probably those parts.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense for me. Sometimes when I find I'm writing a longer piece of work, I haven't found the voice quite yet when I start. And then when you finish, then you realize you need to go back and put that voice you finally achieved back in the beginning. So I totally understand that. And then along the same vein, which scene or chapter, or I guess maybe even theme in this book has been your favorite?
So with relatively few spoilers, there's this scene where the main character, Georgie, has only been in the house for a little while, and she's kind of gone away from the house or the schoolhouse for a little while, and she's come back home, and she sees ghosts in a more dramatic way than she's seen before. And I really enjoyed writing that section, and I felt like it was really lifelike, and I think it provided for me a lot of confidence that I could finish the novel, because I had written that fairly early on. So that's probably my favorite part.
And I guess we kind of already addressed this, what changed the most from the first draft to the published book. You mentioned the first draft was a Nano baby. And then the published book is what we have now. But besides taking what had started out as flashbacks and transforming them into the main meat of the story, was there anything else that really changed?
Oh yeah, because the novel as it is now was entirely written when I wrote it the second time. There were only little bits of the previous draft that found their way in. And even those bits got changed a lot and extended or shortened. The ending was not there at all in the first draft, and just many things weren't there at all.
And I guess I am kind of curious, what made you choose to name the three sisters Georgie, Stevie, and Tommy?
Well, okay, so Georgie was always a really evocative name for me. I had a cat named Georgie that I really loved, and my mom had a childhood friend named Georgie. And then there's also Georgie and Stephen King's It. And it just seemed like a really loaded, meaningful name. Stevie, I think, is an obvious reference to Stevie Nicks. Yeah. I wanted to bring some of that energy into the book. And then once the two of them had boy names, it really had to be all three boy names. I'm thinking of, there was a show called Petticoat Junction, I think, where there were three sisters and they all had boy names. And I think I thought that was really cute when I was a kid.
And I definitely got the Georgie and the Stevie. So I guess that makes sense. But I didn't know about the background of Georgie. I mainly thought of the little boy from It. So that's kind of funny that, like, when you think of Georgie, it's like, Georgie, we all float down here. My total clown. So, and one thing I really found striking about the novel is how almost dreamy the prose is, while also being very gritty at times. Is that something you set about deliberately, or was it something that came about naturally due to the content of, again, no spoilers, the content, especially closer to the end, what happens? Is that something that came about naturally, or something you went into knowing that you wanted to have that kind of dreamy, ethereal kind of prose going forward?
I think not always, but often that's just the way that I tend to write. My stuff often gets called surreal or lyrical. So I did, I think, try to vary the style at different points in the book. So at times you will see that more ethereal style. At times it sounds more instructional, and then other times you have Georgie taking control of the voice a little more, and it just sounds kind of like an average teenager, or maybe not average teenager, but a weird teenager like she is.
Okay, so Beulah is available now. As of right now, I checked, it's available on Kindle Unlimited, but you can also get the paperbacks from there as well. Are you selling signed copies?
Yeah, I sold most of the ones I have, but you can see right above my head, there's a little stack of them. So if anybody wants a signed copy, I can draw some things on the title page and sign it and dedicate it and send it to you.
And I definitely would recommend it. I have the Kindle version, but I was thinking about getting a paperback just because it's the cover is so beautiful too. I was like, I wish I had it right now and I could hold it up, but
yeah, I have it. Do you want me to run back there and get it?
Yeah, why don't you get it and we can show it off?
I don't even have to run that far. I have another one right here.
Nice. Yes, beautiful. You can get this off Amazon, or you can contact Christi for a signed copy. There's only a few remaining. Theatrical voice. So then, what are you working on right now?
Well, I'm always working on stories, and I'm working on finishing the Mother Tales of Love and Terror anthology that I'm co-editing with Willow Becker from Weird Little Worlds. And I'm working on a novel called All My Really Good Friends. So working on lots of things at the same time.
So then a good question is, how do you balance all that? Because obviously you write a lot of short fiction, but you're also getting novels done and collections, which I guess ties into the short fiction, co-editing, doing another novel. How do you manage balancing all that?
I pretty much just do like you would in school. I just do things when they're due. So whenever something needs to be done for a submission call, I'm focusing on that. And then when something needs to be done to be ready in time for the anthology, then I'm focusing on that. So putting out fires, I think, is another way of saying it.
And what is it like, co-editing? Because that's obviously part of the same world of fiction, but it's almost like an entirely different side of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've done editorial type stuff as a reader before, for Pseudopod, and I was a reader for Flash Fiction Online. But it's much different being one of the final decision makers. So I feel a lot more responsible for the final product. And I'm really excited about the final product here. We're going to have a very lengthy and just fabulous anthology. It's going to have illustrations and some of your favorite horror writers. So yeah, it's different because you have more responsibility, I guess.
And then have you selected all the people already? The author? Okay, then here's a question to ask. What was like one thing you were looking for? I feel like it's safe to ask this since all the decisions have already been made. What was what were certain aspects you were looking for? Like, were you focusing more so on stories that really evoked a lot of emotion in you, or like sparked a lot of like exciting feelings, or was it you were looking at what you thought would be great hits in the market, what you knew were being desired in the market, or was it a combination?
So I did talk about this a little bit when we were first starting, the anthology. We had some interviews with Willow and myself on Facebook. So it's not like a secret what I was looking for, although I don't know if too many people watch those. But what I said, and I remember it, is I'm just looking for something that gives me goosebumps. And something can give you goosebumps for lots of different reasons. But mainly it's going to be because it's not the same as the other stuff that you've been reading. So something really unique, something that excites you because it's extra creepy or extra emotional or what have you. So something that gave me like a physical response is what I was looking for.
Do you feel comfortable sharing a specific example from one of the stories that was selected?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I should, but I think I can. I think it'd be okay. One of the stories that was selected is called The Motherless One by Bryson Richard. And when I read that, I was so excited about it because it was unlike anything else that we had read. And it was playing on a familiar story, but not in the way that I expected it to.
Okay, I think that's good for viewers to kind of key into. Sometimes subverting things that have been told before, a great way to get that editor goosebumps. So then let's end with a very important question. What is your favorite food and why is it mac and cheese?
I do like mac and cheese. I make a really good mac and cheese.
And do you put ketchup on it?
Oh no.
What? Don't make that face.
Is that a thing?
I feel like, I mean, I thought it was a thing. Like, I grew up with it. I'm finding it more and more so is maybe just a Canadian thing.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could see how one might do that.
And what is special about your mac and cheese?
Oh goodness. I use a lot of different kinds of cheese in my mac and cheese. So I would put like sharp cheddar cheese and Gouda cheese. And if I had it, I would put pepper jack cheese and Parmesan, and I would just make really decadent mac and cheese.
I mean, that does sound really good though. All right, well, thank you. And again, Christi Nogle, she can be found on Twitter at Christi Nogle. She also has a website, christinogle.com. Is that where people would go to order a signed copy?
Yeah, there's a contact form on my website, and then also there is Twitter DM if you want to order a copy.
Yeah, and again, her novel Beulah is available on Amazon right now, and you can get it on Kindle. There it is, or a signed copy. And her forthcoming collections, The Best of Our Past, The Worst of Our Future, Promise, and One Eye Opened in That Other Place, are coming out with Flame Tree Press in 2023 and 2024. So thank you again. Is there anything you want to add before we sign off?
Oh, no, it was lovely talking with you, and I appreciate being here.
Yeah, and thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.